Hello and welcome back to the Frugal Granny UK channel. I'm Frugal Granny and my name's Ali. I'm a 64-and-a-half-year-old pre-retiree and I will be retiring from my office job at the end of June. If you're new here, you're very welcome, and if you're a returning viewer, hello, it's great to have you back again. Today is the beginning of June and I want to look back today at my discretionary spending for May to see what I spent my money on and how I can do better going forward. I think it's always a good idea to look where your money has gone, because then you know where you can tighten up and make some resolutions going forward. But before we do that, I just want to address a couple of questions that have come up in the comments over the weekend. One of them is, what is an annuity and how do you get one? And the other was, do you have multiple accounts for your sinking funds? Well, both of those questions could probably form a video in themselves, so please excuse me giving quite brief answers. For the first one, an annuity is basically a payment you get when you cash in your pension or when you apply for your pension. It's an amount of money that pension fund agrees to give you every month for the rest of your life, depending on how much you have paid into that fund over the course of your working life. I have what's called a defined benefit pension. I actually have two of them, and I'm claiming from those already, and I get a small amount of money each month from both of them, and I will do for the rest of my life. They are index linked, though unfortunately, because I don't have a partner or a spouse, those pensions will die with me when I do. They are rather old-fashioned pensions, and please, no comments about I could have done better with those, because I've done as well as I could within the limits of what those funds will allow me to do. So that's the way they are. So unless you are working and paying into a work-based pension fund, you are unlikely to be able to get an annuity unless you are paying into a personal pension. And then you could possibly buy an annuity from that, but pensions are a lot more flexible these days than when I started working. And some people would argue that an annuity is probably not the best way to go in terms of maximising your income. But as I've said before, I'm not one who can get her head around stocks and shares and investments. I've had bad experiences with financial advisors in the past, so I don't particularly want to go down that route, and an annuity suits me just fine. Also, if you want to have probably a better definition of an annuity, go over to Frugal Queen in France's channel. She put a video up at the weekend about their June budget and has a slide at the beginning defining an annuity and how it works for them. So that I hope will answer that question. You cannot just get an annuity out of thin air. You have to contribute to a pension fund, whether it's a work-based one or a private one, over a course of years, and then when you come to retire, you can make an arrangement with that fund to buy an annuity. So I hope that helps. Again, as I said, I'm not a financial advisor. I may have got that definition wrong. So please, there's a lot of resources online. Go online, type in what is an annuity, and I'm sure you'll get a much better answer than I have just given you. Right, second question. Do you have multiple accounts for your sinking funds? Yes, I do, actually, but I would say right here and now that it is only one way to approach that. A sinking fund is basically something that you pay a set amount into every month, so that when the bills that are coming out of that sinking fund are due, you have the money to pay them. I mean, for example, my car sinking fund, I put £100 a month in that, and that covers my car insurance, my road tax, the MOT, any servicing, and my breakdown cover for the year. It doesn't include petrol. I pay for that separately out of my main salary. So there are 4 bills a year from that one, and the £100 goes in every month. And then when those bills are due, I have the money there to pay those bills. So the amount of money in that account goes up and down. It is not technically savings because it is already pre-allocated. So that will go up and down. Occasionally there is money left over, and any money that was left over in that account I was saving towards the cost of a potential new to me second-hand car. But as I've mentioned occasionally about the chimney disaster I had in January, any buffer in that sinking fund I had to take out to help cover that unexpected expense. And so I have no money at the moment set aside towards replacing my car, which is a bit of a concern to me, but hopefully I can try and rectify that over the months and years ahead. So yes, I do have multiple bank accounts to put that money into, because I did realize that my bank will allow me to have 5 or 6 online savers. And as I find it easier to see the money in separate baskets or pots, I set up those savers. I renamed them because there's a facility in my online banking to do that. So they're called Firewood Sinking Fund, Emergency Fund, Annual Expenses Fund, Wellbeing Fund, etc., etc., etc. And at the beginning of each month, I move the defined amount into those accounts. Now, some of you would say, well, why don't you just put it all in one account and draw it out when you need to? Apart from the fact that the accounting for that is quite complex, and I have operated that system in the past, the savers I have with my bank have a limit on the amount of withdrawals you can make in a 12-month period without losing the high interest rate. I think it's 4. So in order to maximize the interest I get on those sinking funds, I've set them up so that I only need to take 4 amounts of money out of each one each year, and that enables me to keep the higher interest rate. The minute I take the 4th one out, the interest rate drops to practically nothing, and it's basically not worth having the money in that account at all. So with the car one, I've got the insurance, the road tax, the MOT and servicing, and the car breakdown. So that's 4 payments. So as soon as the 4th payment goes out, anything else, the interest rate will drop. But at that point, I probably renew the account and I can get the interest rate back up again, and we're back to the beginning of the annual cycle. Now, some people do have bank accounts that I believe are just one bank account, but the online banking screen allows you to see that bank account as separate pots. Now, as far as I understand, Sharon at Living on a Low Income UK uses that method, and she has a link so that you can apply for a bank account at that particular bank, which means she gets some sort of benefit, and I think so does the applicant. So I would send you over in her direction for her June budgeting video, because I think she mentions that bank and the link. I've not used that bank at all. I know people personally who, I have a personal friend who uses that bank account, who swears by it, but I don't need to set up a new system. I'm happy with the system I've got, even if it's quite clunky. But if you do want to use one bank account, but that shows you your money in different pots, that may be the way to go. Okay, so that's a rather long introduction to this video, answering questions from viewers. So today I quickly want to look at how I spent my discretionary spending in May. So that would be the discretionary spending from my April office salary that was spent in May. So if I go back and I look at my budgets, I had, where has it gone now? Yeah, I had £207.05 of discretionary spending in May on my office salary for April, once I had paid everything to various sinking funds and other direct debits had gone out, etc., etc. £207.05. Now, what I like to do, and I know I probably could have set this up with a formula, but I like to do it manually. I find it quite satisfying. I copy and paste those lines in my spreadsheet into a separate tab, and then I rearrange them into groups, sum them up to see what I've spent in each category. So let's just have a quick look at that. We'll start at the smaller categories first. Let's start with treats, shall we? We all like treats. Well, I spent £17 and a penny on what I would categorise as treats, and that included 2 ice creams in the park. They've gone up from £2.50 to £3 now, but it's still nice to have the occasional treat. And then 3 bottles of wine that were above the normal 4 that I allow myself for the month. It's just been nice to come home and relax with a glass of wine after a long day, and I don't intend to keep that level of consumption going forward, but may, as you probably know from my resignation blues catch-up video, has been slightly difficult, and it's been nice just to enjoy a glass of wine last thing at night. So that's £17 and a penny, but that in that category, those 3 bottles of wine will not be happening going forward, and they came to, well, we just need to take £6 off it, don't we? So that would have been £11 and a penny that I could possibly save going forward, and that's probably going to happen. Right, the next category is just random things for the house that I probably didn't need, but I just thought would be nice to have. That came to £30.92 and included 2 camping chairs, 2 folding camping chairs with carry cases, and 6 white geraniums. The white geraniums are on my patio and they cheer me up every day. I spent £16 on those and had a £2 saving because I used a discount voucher at B&Q. The camping chairs were on 2 for £16, and I bought those from the supermarket on staff pay day weekend, so I got 15% discount. So in actual fact, that receipt included a bottle of water as well, so that came in at £14.92 with a £6.63 saving. So in that category I saved £8.63, and just for interest I saved £1.44 on those 3 bottles of wine. Okay, the next smallest category, which is an unusual one, I don't normally have anything in this category, was parking. I spent £9.65 on parking in April, and again that won't be happening going forward. £1.65 was on-street parking when I went to my son's final year project exhibition at the university, and it was wonderful to be able just to park round the corner from the exhibition hall and go in and look at all his wonderful work and the work of his peers. It was a really lovely little afternoon out. Then I also spent £8 parking on the day I went to the hospital and then popped into the office afterwards. The hospital didn't cost me anything because I have a secret place that I park when I go to the hospital. That doesn't cost me any money as long as I'm not more than 4 hours. So that was fine. But when I moved from there into the town centre car park, I ended up paying £8 for 5 hours. But that day I really just did not have the wherewithal to cycle, especially taking the hospital into consideration as well. So I effectively treated myself to parking that day. And again, those 2 things will not be happening going forward because there's not going to be another university exhibition I need to go to. I may be parking on Thursday when I go to the office for the last time to hand in my laptop ID and keys. And again, I think that's a tolerable treat. I certainly do not want to cycle in that day. Right, the other category of spending was random saving. I decided to round down my 0% credit card to a reasonable, rational number. It was sitting at 58.69 for some reason. So I decided to round it down to 50. I put 8.69 onto that. And so when I get my supermarket pay this coming month, that last £50 will be paid and that credit card will be closed. I also took out £10 cash because I needed some £2 coins. So I took out a £10 cash, bought a reduced price baguette and asked for the change as £2 coins and kept those for the things I needed. Other random spending in May included the vintage evening dress that I'm going to hopefully wear for my college reunion in July. That was £11.59, and that actually came out of the money I had made on sales on Vinted. So effectively, it didn't cost me anything. I was just trading in one dress for another. And then I also bought a grow house from B&Q, which was £33.43, but that came out of my supermarket salary, and I think I've mentioned that one before. Right, the next biggest category was meal deals and water bought at the supermarket during my shifts. Well, I feel quite horrified with myself about this because last month my resolution was not to let this happen again. Well, it has happened again. I did make the resolution to take water with me and to pack lunches, but I've been doing so much overtime in the last couple of weeks that on a couple of occasions I've actually left the water and the packed meal on my kitchen side. I've got to the supermarket, turned the engine off my car, went to grab my food and water and realised I'd not brought it with me. So on 2 occasions that has happened. So that was 2 meal deals and water. And on the other occasion, I was just really, really hungry. And I don't think people appreciate how physical supermarket work is. You're using a lot of energy and you can end up with quite significant sort of energy dips. And I just needed a sandwich and a Turkish delight that shift. And I posted that on Instagram and obviously got some crazy comments about, hey, yeah, that Turkish delight cancelled out the fact you had no mayo in your ham sandwich. I wasn't even thinking that. I just like sandwiches, ham sandwiches with no mayo, and I hadn't had a Turkish delight for a very, very long time, so I decided to treat myself. It got nothing to do with calories at all. But anyway, that was £10.90, and because of my colleague discount, I saved £4.31, but it was £10.90 that I didn't actually need to spend. So again, I'm going to try and resolve going forward to take lunches and drinks with me. I did manage it over the weekend and that worked out really well. So now that my time at the office is coming to an end and I'm going to have a little bit more time to think and be strategic and do practical things like that, I'm hoping I will be able to keep to my resolution. Right, then obviously the biggest category has been groceries and random bargain food shopping, and I spent £118.94 on, I hate the term shopping hauls, but you know what I mean. I did 2 grocery shops and then the rest was just random things I picked up on Yellow Label during the course of the month. So before we start, let me just say that I may have spent £118.94 on groceries, but I also saved £34.69. I've actually put a new column into my spreadsheet and I'm recording from the receipt the savings that I've made on every purchase, and I'm keeping that in a separate column to try and encourage myself rather than looking at the horrendous amount I've spent. I can also look at the rather positive amount that I've saved. So I may have spent £118.94, but I also saved £34.69. And if I hadn't made that savings, my grocery spend would have been £153.63, which would have been way over budget because I only actually budget £45 a week for food and then anything between £5 to £10 a week for discretionary spending. And I kept within that during May. I think I had 84 pence change. So I'm really, really pleased with myself, but I still think I could have done better if I'd planned better and also remembered to take things with me when I'd planned. Anyway, let's just have a quick look at the grocery shopping. The biggest expenditure was the £48 I spent on the £50 gift card through the office website benefit site. And I think I posted the items I bought with that card. I think I posted them as a shopping haul video. They would have been things that we needed for May that I didn't anticipate being able to pick up during the month on Yellow Label offer. And then there were a few things during that month that were treats. I mean, I've got down here that I bought 6 cream eggs, Cadbury cream eggs for £1.35, which was a fantastic deal. I saved £3.75, but did I really need 6 Cadbury's cream eggs? Probably not. But again, I cannot remember the last time I had a Cadbury's cream egg, and I thought, my goodness me, 6 eggs for £1.35 made them about 20 something pence each. When was the last time you saw a Cadbury's cream egg for 20 something pence? So I'm afraid I caved in there. I bought a couple of lettuces that were on Yellow Label. I got those for 63p for 2 lettuces. I bought a baguette for 28 pence, which I probably didn't need, but it was nice. Then there was a small shopping haul I think I showed on Instagram, but not here on YouTube. I bought a couple of packets of dried beans because dried beans seem to be a thing at the moment. There's not a lot of them around, whether dried or in tins. So I bought a couple of those just in case. And 4 packets of table sauce because they were on 4 for 3, and some milk. And I paid £9.68 and had a saving of £2.70. So that was just a mini shopping haul, which I can justify. Then sliced bread I got 32p, raisin cookies for 95p, and I think there were several packets there because the saving is £3.25. No, I didn't need the raisin cookies. I need to be a bit more strict there. I bought a plastic bag because I needed one. Then there was a small bread haul. I paid £3.36 for that, saved £3.39. That was probably the cranberry, raisin and cashew loaves. I love those. I think I probably grabbed about 6 of those. I hate that word too. I picked up 6 of those and they're now in my freezer. I like having those for breakfast or sometimes for a light tea. And no, I'm not giving up those, I'm afraid. They really are absolutely super. Okay, then I spent £1.81 on some brownies accidentally because I thought they were in the colleague shop and they weren't. So rather than fuss and ask for them to be taken off the tab, I just paid for those. I need to be a bit more careful about that going forward. Then there was another small shopping haul because bacon was on offer. I spent £16.27 on a few packets of bacon, 1 packet of black pudding, and some bacon and beans in tins that were reduced from 50 something down to 40 something. So that was £16.27 with a £4.18 saving. Yeah, the bacon I definitely needed. The other things I could probably have done without. Then again, a dessert for 65p that was a colleague shop item that actually wasn't in the colleague shop, so I paid for it. And again, with 2 avocados, a Scotch egg. So I need to be a little bit more careful looking at the yellow labels when I pick things up. And sometimes, you know, they're on the yellow label counter, it's after the colleague shop opening time, but they're not actually labelled for colleague shops. So I need to look at my labels a bit more carefully going forward. Then I bought some Nut Crisp cereal that was reduced. That was £1.14 and I saved 96 pence. No, I probably didn't need that, but I'm trying to stop myself eating croissants for breakfast every day. Then another I guess impulse yellow label buy, mince, beef burgers and blue cheese. That was— but I saved £8.52 and that was a nice little treat. Then there was a bit of an excess on the food haul, that was £5.46. And then I went to Aldi for the tomato puree, noodles, etc. I think I showed that in a video, and that was £19.02. So I think my take-home message to myself for that is look at your yellow labels a bit more carefully, Ali. Make sure that things you think are in the colleague shop are actually in the colleague shop, and maybe just hold back on some of the things you don't need, like raisin cookies and cream eggs and brownies and chocolate desserts. Yeah, I do need some resolve, don't I, in the food department? Definitely do. But anyway, looking at this did make me think, could I actually shop from scratch, so to speak, if I stuck to my £180 a month food budget? Would it be possible these days for me to feed my son and myself 7 days a week for £180? Well, I think the quick answer to that is no. But what I did do is I went onto the supermarket online shopping site, and I did what I would call some from scratch shopping to see if I could afford to feed us both one decent meal a day for 30 days with only a marginal amount of stuff in the cupboard. So I included things like cereal, bread, coffee, orange juice, 31 protein portions for the month, onions, tomatoes, the carbohydrates to go with that amount of protein. And that's assuming that, the meal I make in the evening would provide leftovers for lunch the next day, which is how I used to work things before I worked at the supermarket. And that came in at £218.65. So before I've even started, I've exceeded my budget, and I think I included pet food for Kitty in that, even though she won't eat pet food at the moment. She's eating rather fancy stuff like chicken breast, etc. And so that was a little bit sort of scary, the thought that it was going to cost me at least £220 to feed two of us a decent meal plus breakfast every day for a month. But don't get me wrong, this is just a hypothetical exercise, because I've said before, I only really feed my son 2 or 3 times a week. So in actual fact, my 180 probably would go a lot further than I think. And I wouldn't necessarily do all the shopping at the supermarket, because as I proved with my little haul earlier, late in May, the tomato puree was a lot cheaper at Aldi, and I got it there. But that £218.65 hypothetical shopping trip online would have costed me £197 with colleague discount, which is almost within my budget. So you can see that there is method in my madness when it came to taking a job at a supermarket. I basically wanted a job that was closer to where I lived, that allowed me to drive to work, and that would afford me some discount on my shopping bill. And I've done that, and I'm pleased about that. And I'm pleased to see that if I shopped a little bit more rationally rather than so spontaneously at the supermarket, I could probably feed myself and my son for the meals that I provide for him each week. There's just a few random thoughts about how I spent my discretionary spending in May and how I intend to try and adapt that going forward. I just need to be a little bit more self-disciplined in some areas, but still realizing that there should be room in life for a few treats. But anyway, I hope you found that interesting. I'm sure some of you are going to have some comments to make on that. Please feel free to do so. And give the video a like, and if you're not subscribed, please think about doing that. And I'll be back on Thursday with a coffee and catch up, probably from my car, because the contractor is working on my house at the moment. He's working on the second floor exterior today, which is why I can record today, because there isn't a lot of noise. But I think by Thursday he will have moved down to the first floor, if not the ground floor, and I'm not sure what the background noise will be. So I thought it would be a good idea maybe just to sit and record my thoughts once I'd handed in my stuff at the office and was technically retired from that job. So anyway, thanks for popping by, and I will see you again on Thursday for more random musings on the journey to semi-retirement. So bye-bye for now. Bye-bye.